you. Thank you.
I will officially begin the conversation about your passions. Welcome, everyone. JP Michaels here, chef d'équipe at the Academy of Enlightenment, sponsors of this Isolating Voices segment entitled Black Like Me, a Time for Passionate Conversation. And Jean, I'm just going to take one moment to just give some background about the title Black Like Me. Black Like Me was a nonfiction account by a white journalist, John Howard Griffin, who had his skin temporarily darkened to pass as a black man, recounting his journey in the deep south of the United States in the late 1950s. And it was first published in 1961. So you can imagine that aside from blackface, which is something totally different, this gentleman, this white gentleman, camouflaged himself in the sense that he passed himself off as a black man and lived as such. And it was quite revolutionary. And so these past few months of global isolation have been a welcomed opportunity for me to listen to myself, and I hope it's been a welcomed opportunity for everyone to give some thought to themselves. But now as the world slowly opens up, it's time, if you will, to listen to others. And that's what this show, Isolating Voices, is all about, talking about the passions of others. And at the risk of embarrassing myself and perhaps my guest today, my very special, passionate guest, is Dominique Boda. I've talked long enough. See what I said, Jean, last night? A young, handsome, multilingual, educated, male, black, gay, bear, successful entrepreneur with no less than 2 clothing brands to his name. Does that describe you?
That pretty much sets it up. Yep, perfect.
I thought you would give the Reader's Digest version of your bio, but let's get
Excellent.
started. Let's get started. And with which pronouns and sexual orientation do you identify?
You know what? It's the first time I've ever been asked that question. I mean,
Great.
this is we're living definitely great new times. But yeah, I identify as a he. Yeah, I'm still struggling with the different pronouns and how people describe themselves, cisgender, non-binary, and all that. But I would say I am a just gay man. That's how I perceive myself. Yeah.
Yes. I just have one quick question, and this is sort of an aside, but because French is so based on masculine and feminine, what do we use? Do we use the? I mean, I know in French they defer to the masculine, but do you know what are the expressions for neutral genders or not? Non. Do you know? I'm just curious. We'll
No,
look this up.
I don't. That's a great question. I don't actually.
Maybe if one of our viewers knows, maybe they could type it in and I'll see. Anyway, what is something that people might be surprised to learn about you, Jean?
One of the things people might be surprised to know about me is that throughout the 13 years of me living in the United States, the last 2 years before I came to Canada, I was an undocumented immigrant. My immigration papers had expired, and so that was the motivation behind which I decided to move to Canada. And I did so with the great help of a lot of people. I actually would like to give a shout out to my great friend Eric Dietrich, without whom I may not have even come to Canada. I mean, there were other people, but yeah, it was an outpour of support because I started a GoFundMe page, and a lot of people who didn't know me, donated and helped me come to this country.
Wow. Wow. That's a wonderful, wonderful affirmation of humanity. I think. I mean, on a personal level, of course, on a personal level. Well, then let's get into the nitty gritty, shall we? I've recounted John in the past, and you probably have read it, or hopefully you've read it. My mother told me I was gay when I was 5, and this was her word for it was that I was special. And it was this conversation born out of an instinctive fear in my mother to somehow protect me, protect my well-being and my safety, because I was heading off to grade 1 in the fall. How old were you when an adult had the conversation with you about being a boy of color, or as my mother might phrase it, a boy with your specialness?
Well, it's interesting because living in Ivory Coast, you're never basically told, or you never your the concept of your of being black is not necessarily brought to you because you live in a country where pretty much everybody is black, so there's no the whole topic and concept of blackness has only uh, been something that I came to not accept, but more than accept. It's like something that I actually acknowledged and took great pride in towards the end of my stay in the US, because I realized that not only my legal status in the US was an influence as far as my relationships with other people, but also my skin color. Also, as far as dating, my dating life, and the people I surrounded myself with, I my race and my identity were main factors when it came to how I interact with others. And so it was towards basically maybe starting around 2011 that all these questions and all these uh, 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 um, uh, concepts of blackness or my sexuality just came to my knowledge. Yeah.
And were both dynamics happening together in the same time of your life, in terms of
That
your black and your gayness?
It's a great question. Actually, no. I would say my sexuality, um, basically the constant how to maneuver the world, knowing that I was a gay man, came first, and
Okay.
much later on did I, because I've been living as a black man my entire life, so it never, that acknowledgement or that concept was always part of me, and I never, I to a point, I didn't have to think about it until I realized, okay, there is a problem. There is a problem in the world I live, and I was pretty sheltered, I have to
And did
admit,
you
for a
realize you were
long
not
time.
the problem? Did you realize you were not the problem though, going through it?
I don't
Like,
think
or
that came much later on, when I actually came to realize that when I acquired a lot more confidence in me, then I
so
realized I wasn't the problem. Yeah.
so did your uber sensitivity or heightened awareness of your surroundings as a gay man, did any of those strategies help you in coming to grips with the way you were being received as a black man?
Yes, absolutely. Because most of my relationships in the time were interracial relationships. So I
Okay.
was dating for the most part white men. And, throughout different patterns during my dating life, I realized that my skin color and my blackness, you know, the awareness of my blackness and the consequences of it, whether good or bad, were something to be acknowledged and something to be aware of when it came to dating or friendships and everything else. So,
It's funny when you use the phrase the awareness of my blackness. I'm trying to think if I've ever thought that way about my whiteness. And I think as you were speaking, I came to some epiphany that is part of my white privilege, that I don't have to think about that. However, I know I've had to think about my gayness, as it were, in making forth, but making myself, going forward in the world. Um, and I just, I never thought of it. I guess also I don't really think about my gayness anymore. I mean, it just is what it is. That's the beauty of being my age, Sean. You see what you have to look forward to. Old age gives you.
absolutely.
Well, that's what they really mean by old age security. You know that. So here's the second one. At what age were you aware of your second layer of specialness, as my mother might phrase it, and acknowledging being a gay male? How old were you then? Because my
Oh, I
mother told
think,
me when I was
ooh,
5.
yeah, it's late. It went through layers. I think I realized that I was attracted to people of the same gender as mine much early on during my life, probably 10. Um, when
Age 10.
I, well, yeah, age 10, when I was, yeah, around 10. Then when I was 18 and I moved to the US, I came to realize that I was sexually attracted to men. And
Yeah. That's
then
another layer.
when I,
Sure.
yeah, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No. I was just saying that that awareness of sexual attraction is another layer in and of itself. Um,
Exactly, yes.
I
And
can
then,
identify
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
yes.
And
And then the self acceptance came much later on, around 2011, 2012, when I realized, okay, I'm attracted, sexually attracted to men, I'm a gay man, and I am going to date men. So that's, yeah.
okay, so that process of decision making, what do you? I'm not aware of your educational background, but I do know that you are educated, formally trained. Let's put it that way. Um, how much of your formal education informed you about that approach of making decisions in such a matter of fact, logical way? Now, I know it wasn't quite so clear cut as that, but what you just described is a very logical thought processes, and as a philosopher, that I can identify. So how does your education inform you of your gayness and your blackness?
So I would
That,
say, yes. Um, as far as my gayness, it was two things. First, the fact my academic education, having studied engineering and having studied for the most part of my life science and things math and stuff like that, I was able to just draw conclusions with, okay, data is given and this data is going to lead to conclusion A, B, C through Z, right?
wow. You know what? I have some amazing mathematician colleagues, former colleagues, and you guys think on a different level altogether, and I just sit back and it's magical. So
Yes.
I really, if you could bottle that process, you would make millions, because to watch people like yourself with that gift of numbers, which I have none, um, it's really feeling you're in the presence of somebody who just doesn't think the way you do, and they don't, which is thankfully, because that's what a math mind does. So
Yes.
that's wonderful how that has informed you.
Yes.
My next question that I have is, you have the luxury of perspective on having lived both in the United States and Canada, and possibly other countries of which I'm not aware. Um, what are some of your observations in regards to similarities and differences, having experienced life in both countries as a gay black man?
Cool. Um,
Some of your
well,
experiences of going into a grocery store, or going into a drugstore, or going into the department store, or having to go into a government office. All of those kinds of, or just your day-to-day um, interactions with people in both the United States and Canada as an adult, gay black male.
so as an adult, the thing is, as an adult, having spent my entire adult life in North America, whether it's Canada or the United States,
Right.
um, the one thing that is similar between both countries is that um, even though a lot of people of people of Caucasian background, a lot of Caucasian men would like to pretend that they don't base their judgment of people on race. They do. It's not something that is necessarily uh, it's not easy to acknowledge or come to terms with the fact that one bases their judgment or the way they interact with people on race, but it's just what it is. And so a lot of things in my life, whether it's friendships or even running to a grocery store, everything I always say, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I am reminded that I'm a black man. You know, um, it's not
By by
necessarily some, yeah,
by yourself, or by someone else, or something else outside yourself.
something outside myself. You know, a factor, whether it's a person or something, will remind me that I'm a black man.
I see.
And it's just a fact. It's just what it is. Now, as far as the similarities, I mean, it's the same. You run into great people who are allies and who will make their existence make a purpose out of their existence to make the world a better place. And there are people who are content with the comfort of a privilege, and there are other people who acknowledge the fact that think the world is they think not that it's a fact, but they see the world as an imbalance, and they're also happy with the fact that white people are on top and black people are at the bottom. So you have these three categories, whether you're in the U.S. or in Canada. The difference is, I believe that in Canada, people are not dealing with the concept of racial inequity the same way the United States is. There's a lot of things that are swept under the rug because people assume that Canada is this great country where there's tolerance. And I do see around me that it's not necessarily the case. It's just that there's a lot. I always say that Canada is British in its ways because things are subdued, rather than the US, where you see the intolerant. You can sense and you can face and you can see the intolerance. In Canada, it's a little bit more subdued because people don't want to pass for race. Either people don't want to pass for racist, or they don't want to see themselves as racist. Not that all Canadians are racist, just that there is racial intolerance. It's just that people don't acknowledge it the way people acknowledge it in the U.S.
I just recently published an article called "The Passionate Revolutionary," and I always pass before I publish. I pass something by. I always pass my readings by writings by a friend and he said, "I'm not sure I like the word revolution." I said, "Well, no, neither do I, but that's what it is, And I think I understand what you're saying about how Canadians couch things a little bit so that it makes it a little more palatable, as we're not standing here holding our permits to carry a gun, which is a whole other show. But
Yes.
I don't want to get into that. So here's the question then. Having lived in the United States and Canada, what privilege would you say you enjoy in your life?
Well, having a legal status is one great thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea, buddy. You want to get that one first.
That is one thing, yes.
For everybody out there with no certification or no, get it. I've been in that position in the United States, and it's not fun. Because in terms
it is not.
No, or when your student visa runs out. That's what my case was. My I form something or other. So what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given?
Oh, that's a good one. A great piece of advice from my cousin. Two advice. One, do not expect anything from anybody because you might end up being disappointed. It's just the way it is. Just go about the world with no great expectation and do the work for yourself. If you want to be and that's another advice from my great friend Eric, be the person you want to be with. Don't expect Prince Charming to be in the building, or do not have a version of Prince Charming to enter your life. If you want Prince Charming, be that Prince Charming for yourself, and then if the universe allows it, then it'll come your way. But yeah.
Yes, and here I just thought I hadn't met my Prince Charming because I can't ride a horse, but there you go. I can't stay on a horse.
One can learn.
What are you passionate about in your life?
Right now, design. Every form of design possible. Because
I'm so glad you said that. You're talking to the right person.
Yes. For a long time in my life, I was forced to not explore my artistic side. And that is one of the great things that I was able to do in Canada, because I didn't have to pretend to live a life that people wanted me to live. It's just my life and my passions and the thing I want to do now. Of course, I have to work to pay the bills, but the fact that I'm able to explore my passions, which is design in all forms, whether it's clothing design, architectural design, cooking, anything that is about creating something beautiful and something that enriches the senses, is, some would say it's better than sex, and I would borderline agree. It's really fantastic. It's
I can
different.
I think it's a little more. Yeah, I would bet the ranch. I would bet the ranch on that one. I would definitely agree with you on
Yeah.
that, Jean. I would
Yeah.
definitely agree with you on that. Well, let's get into more about your design passions then. What can you tell the viewers about Bears United Canada and your exclusive brand? I love this name, Tuscan Oak. Wow, that yes, I love it. I was brought back to the wine country. You know, you know.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you so much.
so so go ahead. This is your show now for Bears United and Tuscan Oak.
So I started with Tuscan Oak early, when I a few months after coming to Canada, because Tuscan Oak, it was basically um, about my journey in both. Tusk represents the symbol of my country, the Ivory Coast, the elephant, and oak representing my journey in North America. And so the representation of a clothing line with African theme, Afrocentric themes, but a modern, with modern products, modern and sportswear, was something that that resonated in my soul. And the second, Bears United, is something I've been collaborating with a great friend of mine, Daniel Imo, who's in Quebec, and we just came up with this brilliant idea of creating an all-inclusive clothing line for bears, because we saw that a lot of clothing lines were only restricted for a certain type of bears. And we figured, you know what, we're going to do our best to have any bears from any shape wear our clothes. And it's a learning curve. It's not easy, but it is absolutely, yeah, it's a beautiful labor of love, and it's really a wonderful process.
So would it be fair to describe then your brand, your clothing brands as niche brands? Is that
Yes.
a fair? Okay. So do you think there is more latitude for Black clothing designers of niche brands in terms of the kinds of reception you might get within the milieu of the niche, as it were, that to which you're appealing, as opposed to the general populace? Do you think there's more of a latitude for Black designers?
I think it is Black designers are getting the recognition that they amply deserve nowadays. Um, I wish it was under better circumstances than, the tragedy, different tragedies that we're dealing with. However, I do believe that Black designers, or Black businesses in general, are getting um, a lot more recognition that they didn't before, and it is absolutely wonderful, because my philosophy is, a brand can start as a niche, but because the story of that brand and the appeal of that brand is so powerful, everybody, no matter what the color of their skin or their culture, can resonate with that. A Black story is not necessarily a Black story for itself. It's a universal story that just happened to be spoken of by Black people. And so that's how I see niche brands. They may target Black audiences at the beginning, but because of the quality of the product and the story that emanates out of that brand, everybody can resonate with that. Everybody can resonate with good skincare. Everybody can resonate with great, beautiful clothing. It does it. The only thing, the concept of Blackness matters because it is our identity, but it's also something we share to the world, to let the world know that we are here and we want everybody to celebrate us and each other.
I came across something similar with another young black designer, Neroni, and I bought a jacket from him, a bomber jacket, and it had Arabic written on it, and I was curious about that connection. And for me, my style is eclectic, to say the least. I do have a reputation for color, as you can see, and layering. I like to layers. I am my father's child. My father was never warm a day in his life, and neither am I. So that's the reason, you know, I've even got a metal thing going on in my neck here. But
oh wow, that's beautiful.
oh, thank you. But no, but the point is, you know, we all are known for something. So what in terms of the actual design, and I know you're designing for bears and et cetera, but the actual design, how would you describe the kind of graphics that you try and come up with that you think would appeal to that niche, or and then again speak to the whole genre of possible potential clients for your brands?
Yeah, for Tuscan Oak, most of the designs that I make are based on traditional African culture. So basically, a lot of masks, because people always identify, you know, like people can recognize right off the bat an African mask, regardless of what particular country it comes from.
Yes.
And so all my designs, you know, are centered around masks and spirituality, as far as or ancestral rituals, as far as Tuscan Oak. When it comes to Bears United, it is mostly different iterations of bear graphics. So or you know, the use of color or maybe forms, but most of the time centered around bears, you know, the bear animal. So, you know, we would have, you know, mosaics, but, you know, with the shape of a bear, or certain words, or having a black bear with an afro and a comb to represent black bear, and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's always one particular image theme where we make different iterations to appeal to different audiences.
Do you think that there is an expectation? I mean, you just got finished telling us that one of the best advice is about not to have any expectation. But do you think there is an expectation? About that was in the sense of personal relationship. But I guess the arena of merchandising, do you think there's an expectation for you to almost choose African motifs and graphics as opposed to Japanese? You know what I'm saying? Like is that what lends? Do you lend credibility to your brand by just being who you are?
It's a great question. Well, the thing is, there's always people, especially with social media, people will always set forth their expectations towards a particular, and people will always have an opinion about how a brand should function, or how their vision of a particular brand should, how their vision should be in sync with the actual vision of a brand. The fact of the matter is, I try to be because these are questions that have always been in my mind and continue to be. How authentic am I to my brand and the people I represent? So it is a journey, and it's not an easy journey, because there is always somebody who's going to question your Africanness, your blackness, your gayness, everything. And so if you always keep your brand and everything you do on the basis of authenticity to yourself at the beginning, it doesn't really matter what the outsider's perspective is, because at the end of the day, you're doing something that serves a purpose for good. Now, you may stray away sometimes, and people would put you in check, which is great. Accountability is great from the clients, right? But at the end of the day, the essence, it's good to not get lost in the mix of perspectives, because everybody has something to say, and it has been completely um, it's gone kind of out of bounds with social media, because everybody can say their opinion and hide
Right.
behind a veil. So, just be authentic to yourself, and always acquire uh, opinions, if needed, from people who are genuinely looking out for your best interest. But at the end of the
So,
day, it's all about how you become authentic to yourself and to your
so
brand.
within the symbolism, the African symbolism that you're using in your brand, how, and you mentioned that a lot of those symbols have a faith component to it, or a reference. Is this a fair question to ask how your faith in whatever you believe has informed your clothing line?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I was born, raised. I was raised Catholic. I went to
I
Catholic school
I
for
can
the,
relate. I can relate. Go ahead.
and yeah, I've been to Catholic school the first 12 years of my existence. Well, actually, the first 18 years of my existence. Um,
Yes.
and slowly and surely, when I grew up to become an adult in the United States, I became familiarized with ancestral African rituals called Yoruba or Ifa. And although I am not a full uh, adherent to that community, because it takes a lot of knowledge and practices, I have taken a lot of knowledge from that practice to build my spirituality. Basically, and it also became a contributing factor to my awareness of being black and African and celebrating it, because I was able to take the knowledge of celebrating my ancestors, celebrating the
I love
people
that.
who,
That
yeah,
image is wonderful.
yes. And so for me, my ancestors are my guardian angels. The same way Catholicism brings guardian angels, my ancestors are my guardian angel. And I was able to cultivate that knowledge to make my spirituality and guide my every action I make into the world.
You know, the question is often asked uh, if if the exposure to the internet and violence, for instance, on young people is going to affect them. And I think back to the number of times I read the lives of the saints, and I thought we were encouraged to read the lives of the saints as a Catholic, and I don't mean to be exclusive about this. I'm sure it's not, but my point is, if we were encouraged to read the lives of the saints to be edified by their actions, and affected by their actions for good, I can't see why the opposite wouldn't be true. You know what I'm saying? If you're going
Yes,
to expose yourself to negative imagery and negative, and so the revolution really is about exposing people to all that is good and just in terms of making a statement of global proportions. So my
yes.
question to you is this: how might you explain to an inquisitive child the high number of very young black men who are killing one another?
Oh, well, I would
If
start by. That's a good question. Well, I would say to a young person, whether black or white or whichever, that black people, minorities, people of color, are living into uh, precarious situations, um, and such unbelievably difficult standards to live with, and unbelievably difficult settings, poverty, lack of employment, um, 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 you know, pay inequality, that sometimes it leads them to hurt each other because they are functioning out of survival. And sometimes survival leads to not be kind to their fellow man, because all they see is how do I feed myself and my family. It's not that they are out to hurt one another for the fun of it. It is just that sometimes the world has become so incredibly difficult to live in, and there are absolutely no opportunities for them to flourish. They have to resort to survive, to the detriment, to the point of killing or hurting people of their own. And there is a great man by the name of Killer Mike who online I was watching online that I was watching online, and he said, if you eliminate poverty in communities of color, you would reduce tremendously the high level of the high crime rate. And that's at the core of it. If you give opportunities to people of color and you create a level playing field for everybody to flourish, to thrive, the world will be a better place, period. So,
And so, with the symbolism that you use in your and graphics that you use in your clothing lines, um, for instance, this scarf is made by a good dear friend of mine, Susie Rower, and she names her scarves, which I thought a bit odd at first, but I kind of like it. And that is, this is called Electric Love because it's got the word love in. My point is to the question, how might your brands be informing young Black minds?
so my brands, the goal of both brands is to bring one awareness and creating a sense of identity to whomever wants to wear them. So as far as Tuscan Oak, I'm the African kid who had the privilege of living in North America. And I have been surrounded by a lot of people who, although were raised in the African culture, are living in a more modern, not modern, but in the Western world. And so and also living in the Ivory Coast, the kids my age or even younger wear sportswear that are, Western centric,
Right.
and so I wanted to create that mix where you can wear something more traditional if you want to, but if you want to wear something that is more of a daily attire, you could wear your colors, wear your identity wherever you go, while still look westernized. And that is the goal of Tuscany. Bears United is just somebody who's a sympathizer, is directed towards people who sympathize or people who identify as bears, but who may be, and there's a lot of them. I was one of them, at one point, who don't necessarily feel like they belong, or who throughout the internet with Instagram and these, absolutely ridiculous standards, think, well, this is what bears look like, when in reality, bears, the spectrum is this big, yeah. And so I want them to wear their colors and to feel like they belong to a community, even though, social media tells them they don't, So, yeah.
So in terms of the various levels of families that we might, we are chosen families as opposed to our natural families, where on the hierarchy do you identify with bears as your family?
So my chosen family, there are many layers of my chosen family, but given that my um, awareness as far as being gay started when I discovered the bear community, um, you know, I would say my chosen family, the bear community is part of my chosen family, but just like any family, it's not perfect. There is a whole, there are topics that, yeah, there are topics and things that need to be discussed in that community that I think people are not discussing enough, especially mental health, and self acceptance. Um, but yeah, as far as chosen family, yes, definitely the bear community would be one of them because it allowed me to accept myself, and to understand that, oh, well, this beard, this chunkiness, this black skin can be attractive to somebody out there, you know? And that was the entry, like the doorway to me discovering a whole lot of things. But
Yes,
yeah,
it's a very humbling experience to suddenly be aware that you are attractive to someone else. You're seen as attractive to someone else.
yes,
It's very humbling,
yeah.
no matter what color you are. Um, I I have no more questions. And if you have something you would like to say to the world, please do. I will wrap it up shortly, but I just want to give you as much time because, as I said to you, Jean, when I approached you and I invited you to come on, this is just one of my ways of giving voice. As I said, I've been thinking a lot about myself over the period of the months of isolation. It's now time to start thinking about other people. And I just finished writing a piece and I said, COVID-19 is the best preamble to a global, um, uh, revolution because we have proven to ourselves what we can do at a
Yeah.
drop of a hat. We can change our ways. We can uh, unite as a humankind and to protect ourselves. Um, and if this platform in any way can give opportunities to just for people to speak their minds and to share their passions, again, I suspect we're more alike than we are different. And so maybe that's what we need to focus on. How are we alike, and how can we help each other? And this is my way of giving voice to that. So
Well, I gotta thank you. Thank you for actually creating that template, or creating this form of communication so that people can express themselves, and also people can share their perspective, and it all starts with creating a narrative and communicating about our differences, and also how we can merge together to create a better society for ourselves and also for future generation. And so thank you, and I applaud you for that. So yeah.
you, merci beaucoup. So without any further ado, Jean, encore une fois, merci beaucoup. You have been an extremely generous and thought-provoking dialogue, a conversationalist, as it were. And I'm just going to say thank you, everyone. For those of you who tuned in, I hope you found this educational, because that's what I'm all about. Also, I've just been given my 145, I'll dismiss that. That's the 145 call. So I did set the alarm so I can push the record button after this. I really screwed up last time, but I'm much better this time. See, you bring me good luck, monsieur.
Merci beaucoup, Joe. Merci
Thank
beaucoup.
you from the Academy of Enlightenment, where the faithfully fashionable come to learn that without faith in yourself, you don't have a chance to heaven, and without style, you don't have a chance in hell. Thank you very much. Stay well, stay safe. Michael signing off with Jean. Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Au revoir.
Take care. Bye.